Alright guys, welcome to part 5. We're starting to get somewhere now. We have something kind of starting to approach what the original asteroids look like. The next thing we're going to do in this particular episode is we're going to look at adding just a very quick score tracker to the screen. So we're going to add like a number in the top left that just shows how many points we have at any given time. It's going to be really, really simple, super basic. It's just going to, every time we blow up one of these asteroids, it's going to give us an amount of points, and we're going to track that number of points and just show it in the top left of the screen. So in order to do this, we're going to create another new object. Unlike our previous objects, however, this one doesn't need a sprite, because it's not going to be drawing a sprite to the screen of any kind. It's going to be drawing just some text that's going to be the number of points that we have at any time. So this is going to be our first invisible object, if you will. So without making any new sprites, because we don't need to, just right click in objects and go to insert object. I'm going to call it obj underscore score. Right? The sprite, just leave that as no sprite. We don't need to do anything there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do in here is go and add the create event, so that when this object is made for the first time, usually at the very start of the room, drag in an execute code action. I'm just going to write global.points equals 0. Now be careful not to write global score equals 0. As you can see, that word score turns red, because that's a built-in global variable used for tracking score, which we could use here, but I wanted to demonstrate how to use global variables in this this particular tutorial. So I'm going to stick with global.points. Now, you've seen before, we've modified various numbers and things in our object, like we've taken things like speed and set it to equal like itself plus 2 or something like that, right? We can take variables and we can change them, but we can also invent our own arbitrary variables, which are just arbitrary words that we can name anything. I can make one called potato and set it equal to 7, and then from that point onwards, whenever we referenced potato, GameMaker would know we were actually talking about the number 7, right? And we can use variables to store and change numbers that are relevant to different parts of our game. You know, the amount of hit points you have, the amount of damage you're doing, the amount of points you have, the lives you have, and so on and so forth, right? All of these different numbers and things can be stored inside of variables. The reason for this word global dot that I've put in front of the variable is to make it so that this variable can be accessed from any other object in the game at any given time. Any other piece of code running in the game can reference this variable, assuming that we've initialized it like we have here. Assuming that this line of code is run, then any other line of code after it can talk about global.points, and GameMaker will know what it's talking about. Whereas if we just wrote points equals 0, and then we tried to say, oh, points equals, let's say in object asteroid, when the asteroid is destroyed, we tried to say points equal points plus 5, GameMaker wouldn't know what points was, because we would be doing it in that object when we'd established the variable inside of our score object. So, but if we make it a global, then we can reference it from anywhere else, and GameMaker will know what we're talking about. So that's the only thing we actually need to put in here. We just need to establish this variable, and we're going to set our points to be 0 at the start of the game, right? Go ahead and click tick. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and add what's called the draw event. Okay? It's a little, one little square, circle, and a triangle, just a draw event. There's a bunch of these, but you don't need to worry about all these other ones. They're all for various different advanced things. We just need the basic draw event. Now, every object actually carries out the draw event by default. It carries out the draw event, that's the part of the game where your objects are all drawn to the screen, right? Even if you don't set up a draw event, in fact, especially when you don't set up a draw event for an object, all of its drawing and rendering is handled by GameMaker by default. By default, the draw event just says, during the draw event, draw the sprite to the screen at our current position, our current rotation, our current scaling, and so on and so forth. Whereas if we define our own draw event, then we can tell GameMaker to draw stuff to the screen in different ways, or do various different other types of drawing things, other than just drawing our object's sprite to wherever it is. And this object doesn't even have a sprite, because what we're going to do in this object's draw event is just draw some text, okay, on the screen that shows what our current score is. So go ahead and in the draw event and drag in an execute code action, and I'm just going to say, now by default the drawing color is set to black, So what we're going to do first is set our drawing color to white by saying draw set color open bracket C underscore white semicolon. Okay, that just sets the color of our drawing tool so that when if we draw things like rectangles or lines or dots or text as we're about to, then it will draw them in whatever color is set using draw set color, and by default it's black. Black wouldn't show up on our background, so we need white. Then all I'm going to do is type draw underscore text, okay, another yellow function, open brackets, and now we need to provide the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and exactly what string of text we're going to draw to the screen. So the x coordinate can be, say, 64 pixels from the left and 32 pixels from the top, okay? Because the higher your x coordinate, the further right you go, and the higher your y coordinate, the further down you go, right? So 64 pixels in and 32 pixels down, okay? That's where we're going to be drawing this text, and the text, the actual string that we're going to draw is going to be global dot points, that variable that we set up in the create event, okay? Not with a semicolon, and that's all we need. So now if I click OK and I just go into the game room, and if I draw to in the objects tab in the rooms, just go to object to add with the mouse, object score, and just click somewhere in the room. Okay, you'll get this little blue circle with a question mark coming in. Okay, that's totally fine. That just means you've placed an object that doesn't have a sprite. Okay, so GameMaker needed some way to represent a spriteless object inside the level editor, and that's how it shows it. It won't show up like that in the game, it just won't, it'll be invisible. Okay, it's just to show that that object doesn't have a sprite. So now if we run the game, we should see the number 0 like somewhere in the top left around where we've placed it actually. Yeah, like around there. So you can see the number 0 is there because that's our the current value of global.points, okay? So now all we need to do is basically raise that number whenever we blow up an asteroid. So we can do that very easily just by going into obj_asteroid and the destroy event, which we already have. So here where we were making the new objects, we can go ahead and say global.points equals global.points plus 50. Okay, just add 50 points. Now, we also need to go and add this line into our small asteroid, because currently in the destroy event for this we overwrote the parent object's destroy event with this action of doing nothing, okay? But we don't want to do nothing anymore, we actually want to give you some points. Since it's a smaller asteroid and slightly harder to shoot, we'll give you a few more points for it. So if I say global.points equal global.points plus 75, so it's going to equal itself plus 75, so it'll increase by 75 each one of these we blow up. Click OK and you'll find that's more or less everything. So if I shoot this now, you'll see, yep, as I shoot things, my points go up by 75 for every small asteroid, and by 50 for every large asteroid. And that's adding score. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you're finding this series useful so far. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, just leave them in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next week. Thanks, guys.